Good morning, dear students. I am glad to meet you at our video lesson by home reading subject. This video lesson is prepared by the teacher of special disciplines of the English language, Mireeva Klara Sanzirovna, from Mangistau Humanitarian College, named after Moronjrao Sengerbek Ula. Students, you know that home reading is devoted to the literature. Literature offers knowledge to those that seek it, gives experience to those who understand it, pleasure to those that love it. Writer uses his imagination, knowledge, and perhaps a little research to guide his imagination. Objectives: to develop the students' voluntary and involuntary memory, their imaginative abilities and willpower, widening the students' general and philological outlook, developing their powers of abstract thinking, cultivating their sense of beauty and their appreciation of literature, acquainting the students with the life and culture of the English-speaking nations and with their manners and customs. Robert Ruark, born in Wilmington on December 29, 1915, Robert Chester Ruark was known as a poor man's Hemingway, and he became one of North Carolina's most prominent 20th century writers. Ruark was reared in Wilmington, but his family moved within the city throughout his childhood. During his summer breaks, Ruark stayed at his grandfather's home in Southport. Students, let's watch video about the literary career of Robert Ruark. Please, after watching this video, you will answer to the questions.
Ruark was the hottest columnist in America. He partied at Two Shores. He closed down the Stork Club. He was earning $50,000 a year. Publishers, anxious to reap the windfall, crafted his first books from that heyday. Grenadine Etching, I Didn't Know It Was Loaded, and One for the Road. That success created even more notoriety, but even Ruark was getting tired of it. He knew he could do better, he told friends. He decided to safari in Africa, and that journey changed his life.
He had just always wanted to go to Africa. I'm sure the old man, he had talked about Africa with Captain Ned, and had read all those books and dreamed of it like countless other boys did. And he finally reached a point where he could actually do it and get someone to underwrite the trip on top of it. And through that, of course, that's where his best novels came from. Now, he had tried the waters as a novelist in the late 40s, but it wasn't until he went to Africa that he really broke through as a novelist and wrote blockbuster bestsellers.
The weeks in Africa spawned new genres for Ruark. Authentic sporting tales and vast epic novels based on real events, especially stories of Africa's struggle for independence.
He was there precisely when, what the British Prime Minister at the time, Harold Macmillan, called the winds of change were sweeping Africa. And nowhere did those winds of change blow harder and stronger and more viciously than in East Africa. And of course, out of that came those books, one of them bearing the title Uhuru, which means freedom. And so he was there, and he had the knack to capture it.
While in East Africa, Ruark heard little about the seething discontent of the Kenyan people as they chafed under British rule. On a second trip to Africa in late 1952, though, the Mau Mau uprising exploded, and Ruark was in the middle of it. He wrote columns and magazine articles from ground zero as the violence grew. When he left Africa in 1953, his pastoral image of Africa was in tatters, but he had the material for his greatest novel.
He was just there at the right time and had the right kind of mental receptivity and literary ability to capture it all. And his books are powerful that he wrote about. There's no question, and that's what made his fortune. Was the movie rights to one of them that depicted the sheer chaos that came with the Mau Mau uprising.
In the early 50s, between his Africa work, Ruark approached Field and Stream about a monthly column based on his experiences with his grandfather, Ned Atkins. The magazine eagerly accepted, and in 1953, the first Old Man and the Boy column appeared.
Questions. When and where did Robert Ruark live? What university did he attend? What is Robert Ruark's most famous story? Answer the questions, please. Listen to the vocabulary of today's story. Foul play, нечестная игра, әділсіз ойын. Be ordered into the armed guard. Быть призванным в вооруженную охрану. Қарулы қарауылға шақырылу. A merchant ship, торговое судно. Сауда кемесі. Mechanical skills, знание механики. Механикалық дағдылар. Ragtag, случайные люди. Кездейсоқ адамдар. To have somebody well in hand. Держать в ежовых рукавицах. Тәртіпті қатал ұстау. A problem child. Трудный ребенок. Тәртіпсіз бала. To keep discipline. Поддерживать дисциплину. Тәртіпті сақтау. Confinement to ship. Не разрешать сходить на берег. Не пускать в увольнительную. Кемеге қамау. Кемеден кетуге рұқсат бермеу. Exhibition of boxing skill. Демонстрация боксерского искусства. Искусство боксерского боя. Бокс шеберлігін көрсету. To knock somebody out with a single punch. Выбить, отправить в нокаут с одного удара, одним ударом. Бір соққымен нокаутқа түсіру. Aboard ship. На борту корабля, кеменің бортында. Students, let's listen to the audio script of story A Foul Play by Robert Ruark. Listen please attentively, pay attention to the pronunciation of words and the word combinations.
A foul play Ruark in 1943. Lieutenant Alexander Barr was ordered into the armed guard aboard the merchant ship. Like many other civilian officers with no real mechanical skills, teachers, writers, lawyers, his men were the ragtag of merchant service and knew very little of it. Lieutenant Alec Barr had his crew well in hand except one particularly unpleasant character. A youngster called Dubinsky. Every ship has its problem child, and Dubinsky was Alex Cross. If anybody was drunk and in trouble ashore, it was Dubinsky. If anybody was smoking on watch, or asleep on watch, it always was Dubinsky. Discipline on board was hard to keep and Dubinsky made it worse. Alec called the boy to his cabin. "I've tried to reason with you," he said. "I've punished you with everything from confinement to ship to extra duty. I've come to the conclusion that the only thing you may understand is force. I've got some boxing gloves. Navy regulations say they should be used for recreation. We are going to have some." "That's all right," Dubinsky said, smiling. Alec announced the exhibition of boxing skill. A lot of people gathered on deck to watch the match. It didn't take Lieutenant Barr long to discover that he was in the ring with a semi-professional. They were fighting 2-minute rounds. But from the first 5 seconds of the first round, Alec knew that Zabinski could knock him out with a single punch if he wanted to. But Zabinski didn't want to. He was toying with his commander. And the snickers grew into laughter. In the third round, Alec held up a glove. "Time out," he said. "I'm going to my cabin. I'll soon be back." He turned and ran up to his cabin. In the cabin there was a safe. Alec's duty was to pay a wages to his personnel. Alec Barr opened the safe and took out a paper-wrapped roll of 10-cent coins. He put this roll of silver coins into his glove and returned on deck. "Let's go," he said, and touched gloves with Zabinski. It had pleased Zabinski before to allow the officer to knock him from time to time because it gave him a chance for a short and painful punch. But now the silver-weighted glove crashed into the boy's chin and Zabinski was out. He was lying on the floor motionless. Alec Barr looked briefly at the boy. "Somebody throw some water on him," he said coldly to the seaman. And he went up to his room to clean his cuts and put the roll of coins back to the safe. After that, Lieutenant Alexander Barr had no more personnel trouble aboard ship.
Questions. Why was Alexander Barr, being a civilian officer, ordered aboard the merchant ship? Explain the phrase, "He had his crew well in hand." What proves that Zabinski was a problem child? What sort of measures did Lieutenant Barr use to reason with the youngster? Did Alec Barr really mean to have some recreation when he spoke about boxing? Why was Zabinski smiling when he accepted Lieutenant's suggestion? Did it take Barr long to discover Zabinski's boxing skills? What was the reaction of the seamen who had gathered on deck to watch the match? Why did Barr ask for the timeout? What was Zabinski's tactics during the match? Proof that he didn't expect a change in the course of the match. What did Alexander Barr do after the next had knocked the boy out? Did the result of the match help Lieutenant to keep discipline on board? Answer the questions, please. Our next task is give Russian and Kazakh equivalents for the following words and expressions from the text, and use them in the sentences of your own. With no skills, reason with somebody, punish somebody with something, come to the conclusion, take somebody not long to do something, please somebody, from time to time, have trouble with somebody. And your homework is discuss the following and write down your opinion. Supposing Zabinski guessed something wrong in Lieutenant's behavior, how do you think he would have acted? What kind of methods did Alexander Barr use trying to reason with the boy? Were there proper methods? Which methods, to your mind, should he have applied? Could Barr's methods of keeping discipline be justified? Comment on the title of the story. Is the word foul used in its direct or figurative meaning? Give a character sketch of Zabinski and Lieutenant Barr. Students, you are very clever and hard-working students, and it's time to say goodbye. Stay home, stay safe, take care of yourself. Wear a face mask. Goodbye.